All right, so you want to know how to bulletproof your OEM MT82? You've come to the right spot. I'm going to show you how to do that. So some of you might have seen the reel I posted on Instagram that went somewhat viral about a week or two ago. So that video had a ton of engagement. I had hundreds of messages asking me what the setup of the transmission was. I had comments, also people messaging me saying that I'm bullshit and that it's not an OEM MT82. Well, I'm here today to tell you that it is an OEM MT82. I'm going to tell you the things I've done around the transmission to make it hold up and work the way that it does today. So a little bit of history on the car for people that aren't familiar. It's a 2014 Mustang GT. So it is a Gen 1 MT82 car. I bought it in 2016. We're 2023 now, so I've had the car for 7 years. The car has had the absolute kicked out of it for 7 years. So when I picked up this car in 2016, I did have all the typical issues of the MT82. Lots of lockout. The shifter felt like complete garbage. I was having issues with my clutch. My clutch would like stick to the floor and I'd have to pull it up with my foot. All sorts of issues. This thing was absolutely the worst manual transmission I'd ever run in my life. So the MT82 in this car is OEM, has not been opened up. It's the exact same transmission that was in this car when I bought it in 2016. I bought this car with 59,000 kilometers. I'll convert that to miles for my American friends on here. The car currently has about 110,000 kilometers. So there are a number of things that I've changed around outside of the transmission to combat all those issues that have worked and that have got me to where I am today with this car. And knock on wood, still kicking. So the first modification I did was actually free, which will cost you absolutely nothing. So underneath the pedal, there's a spring that helps with engagement and disengagement of the clutch. It gives you a really fake feel. So I removed that, cost me nothing. I know you can buy aftermarket springs that have, I think, a looser or tighter spring rate on them. I'm going to tell you, remove the spring, throw it in the garbage. You don't need to replace it. I've been going now for probably 6 years with no clutch spring. And I will tell you, the clutch feeling was 10 times better without that spring. Easier to find the engagement. Yes, it's a bit heavier, but it's more of a mechanical feel, which I prefer. So there's lots of videos online of how to remove that spring. So I'm not going to get into explaining that. I'll actually plug one of those videos in up here. So once you're done watching this video, if you haven't removed that spring, you can go back, watch that video, and he explains on how to remove that spring. So the second modification I made to this car to try to combat the issues I was having with lockout was the shifter. So the factory shifter in this thing was terrible. It's made up of rubber bushings and all sorts of components. It's very janky and just feels like complete garbage. So there was really only a couple options for shifters at that time. Barton had an option, and MGW. So through all my research, I seen a bit more positive feedback on the MGW. Mind you, the Barton had great feedback as well. I'm very analytical, so I went with the masses and I went with an MGW. So MGW has 4 different shifters for this application. I didn't go with the shortest throw. I went with the second shortest throw, which I believe was 21% reduction. With that option, it is their X or race spec, but you get to maintain the factory shift knob. Call me crazy. I prefer the factory shift knob. I'm not a big aftermarket shift knob guy, so I went with that option. Yes, you can get the low profile handle option, which I believe is a 25% reduction, so we'll net you some better gains, but you have to go with an aftermarket shift knob. So the MGW shifter is trans-mounted. It's very solid. It gives you almost a gated feel. The engagement is very tight and sturdy. It is a game changer. So unfortunately, the shifter did not fix my lockout issues, but the shifter was one of the top mods I did on this car. So I'm going to highly recommend an MGW shifter. I am not sponsored by MGW, but MGW, you know how to get a hold of me. You like my stuff on Instagram, so hit me up. So after trying those 2 modifications, it was on to the next. So from there, I moved on to the modifications that fixed my lockout issues. So we swapped out the clutch, flywheel, and braided clutch line. I went with a McLeod stainless steel braided clutch line. The factory clutch line on this car is a janky plastic line, and I believe that had a lot to do with the mushy feeling I was getting with the pedal. And with that, we added a new clutch and flywheel. So the clutch market for these MT82s is crazy. There's hundreds of different clutches you can go with. A lot of it, I think, personally comes down to application. I think I mentioned I'm very analytical, so I spend probably hundreds of hours researching clutches. I was looking at what my power goals were, which at that time was 700 wheel. I wasn't boosted. It was NA at that time. So I'd say the 2 biggest options that came up for clutches when I was searching was McLeod. So McLeod has an RST and an RXT. The RXT, I've seen a ton of feedback on damaged, blown up transmissions from using that clutch. I believe that's their race clutch, twin disc deal. They have an RST, which I believe is more street friendly and not as aggressive on the transmission. However, I did see a lot of failures on transmissions with that clutch as well. So the second option I had seen a lot was Mantic. Mantic was a $2,000 US clutch, I believe, at that time. Not the kind of money I was looking to spend or had available to me to spend on a clutch. My budget was $8,000 to $1,000 US. So I continued on with my research. Now, a little bit of my history. I was into the import scene before. I had a Civic with a B Series NA deal, and it had an Exetti clutch in it. Since I own that car, I don't think I've had a car that shifted or felt any better than that car did. So I figured I should look into what Exetti's options are, right? So with Exetti, for my application and what I was looking to do with the car, they had a Mach 500 and a Mach 600. So if I remember correctly, Exetti rates their clutches by wheel torque. So I think the Mach 600 is good for 600 wheel torque, and the Mach 500 is good for 500 wheel torque. Also with that clutch, I did read a lot of rules. It's very street friendly, not a dual disc. Seems like the dual discs just eat up these transmissions. So that was kind of one of my things too. Hopefully that would help with the longevity of this transmission. So we went ahead, ordered the Mach 600, put the Mach 600 in. We paired that up with a lightweight steel flywheel. We could have went with an aluminum flywheel, but again, this car at that time was primarily a street car. I had no interest of racing this car competitively, so I had to keep it street manners. Regardless, I am still happy with the decisions I made now because the car does spend more time driving on the street than it does at the track. So once I got that clutch installed, flywheel installed, and clutch line, lockouts were gone. I have not had a lockout issue since. So there you have it. Those are the mods that you need to make. Get rid of that clutch spring, change your shifter, put an MGW in it, get rid of your factory clutch, get rid of your factory flywheel, go with something that's not too harsh like the Mach 600 I went with. I believe that plays a big role as to why my MT82 is still alive is because that clutch is not aggressive. Also, the clutch line, change that clutch line. And I'm telling you that that setup is going to feel phenomenal. You're going to be happy. Oh, and I forgot. There is one more modification that you must have to have a bulletproof MT82. And that is the driver mod. So I'm going to go against the masses, and I'm going to say on this video that the MT82 is not a terrible transmission. With the right modifications to it, and if you treat it right, am I treating it right? It will hold up. It will hold up to a lot more power than what they're rated for. This car had 420 horsepower at the crank to start with. It probably has close to 1,000 crank horsepower now, and it is loving life. Now, if you have any additional questions or I missed anything on this video, go ahead, put a comment down below. Hey, regardless, put a comment down below. If you like this video, comment. It's going to help the channel. If you're not subscribed, subscribe, like the video, share the video, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace.